Good morning, everyone, and welcome to this special episode of the Maritime Morning Brief. I am your host, Sarah, here with Executive Director Patrick Gallagher.
Good morning, everybody.
And we are really thrilled to be here with Port of Seattle Commissioner Sam Cho here today. Thank you so much for coming to see us. We talked about this a little bit at a brief event once and then followed up, and we've been just flaunting it everywhere. We're just really excited to have you in our office and have you here and just talk about everything. So
yeah, Sam, thanks for being here.
Absolutely.
It means a lot to us. It's we know your time's very precious, so thank you. And I'm just gonna jump right into it.
Yeah, let's go do it.
How's the trade war going?
Wow, just cut straight to the chase. It's been an interesting year. Obviously, it's not the first time we've dealt with tariffs. The first administration under Trump also had some tariffs, but obviously it wasn't as extensive, right? We didn't slap tariffs on 90 countries. It was really focused on Canada, Mexico, and China the first time around, and now we're dealing with tariffs, across the Pacific, across the transatlantic. It's interesting because if you look at our container volumes in the first quarter, we were up almost 20% in volume.
Right.
And I know that sounds counterintuitive to most people who don't, operate within this industry, but that was obviously a lot of front loading. People were anticipating, or, when Donald Trump said these tariffs are going to go and, or announced it April 1, and, everyone tried to get everything in before April 1, right? And then he gave, a pause. And so everyone continues to try and get all their goods in before the tariffs get hit on that deadline. And so there's been a lot of volatility. We started to see a drop in volumes probably in late May, in the 20% week over week. Whenever he announces, it seems like every time he announces another extension of the pause, there's another surge. And so if you look at the graph of our volumes, it's very volatile.
Right.
It's not good for the supply chain, right? And I think we all learned that lesson during the COVID-19 pandemic when we had a huge surge of containers. Our warehouses were full, our truckers were busy and whatnot. But it's really the lack of reliability of the schedule that becomes the biggest problem, right? Especially for those truckers who rely on 1 or 2 turns a day to make ends meet. I was talking to a trucker, last month. He said this has become such an unreliable source of income for him that he might need to start driving Uber to supplement his income, right? And so that's the situation we're in right now. Not to mention the fact that tariffs are inflationary. And because of all the front loading, we haven't seen the inflationary effects to the fullest extent thus far, right? You remember people front loaded their shipments, so they try to anticipate the demand for the next 6 to 9 months, ship everything here, warehouses are full, and then what happens is it takes time to get through that inventory right, in the warehouses, and then when that next shipment comes in, that's when it gets slapped with the tariff, right? And so a lot of folks on Wall Street and, even the Federal Reserve are like, we still got to wait and see the full effects of these tariffs because they haven't hit us yet. Right? So just living in a tremendous period of uncertainty right now and instability.
I believe you. So I think we've been sort of lulled into this bit of a submission thinking, well, things are still semi-status quo. We're okay.
Yeah.
We haven't seen, nothing's gone seriously to hell. Because it is a system that gets front loaded. There's volume that goes into the system and then volume comes out slowly over time.
Yeah.
So I'm not convinced I think we may just start seeing it.
Absolutely.
This year.
And you're already seeing it in certain goods. Like the cost of coffee is shot up like crazy. A lot of perishable goods that you can't store in a warehouse for months.
Right.
Right. And so those commodity goods have already been hit.
Yeah.
But it's your Christmas presents that are going to get hit this December, right?
Yeah.
And Donald Trump needs to know that because he was like, you can buy less Christmas presents.
Yeah. I heard about that too.
He literally said that.
Yeah.
And so he's not oblivious to the effects of these tariffs. But it basically, is a tax on everyday Americans, right? And for us, here in the Pacific Northwest, us being a West Coast port, Asia is our largest trading partner. China has been our largest trading partner. South Korea, Japan, Vietnam, these are our top 4 trading partners who have all been hit by tariffs, right? And a lot of those goods that we import from those countries are everyday goods, the stuff you buy at Walmart. They're not the Louis Vuitton bags you import from France, right?
Right.
And so it's everyday Americans who are going to get hit by these tariffs without a doubt.
And so, sort of distilling that down into the local impacts. Your Port of Seattle, you're with the Northwest Seaport Alliance. What are you anticipating? What is the port thinking, and then how are they responding?
Well, it's been really tough because, generally you want to, the old Wayne Gretzky quote, skate to where the puck is going. With this guy, you really never know where the puck is going to shoot off to, right? But, we've had some industry trends over the last, I would say, 3 to 5 years where, if we accept the fact that our trade with China is going to basically, plateau or continue to go down, we need to find other partners or other places to do trade with, right? I always say trade is like a balloon. If you squeeze a balloon, the air doesn't disappear; it just pops out somewhere else, right? And so, where is that popping out happening? Over the last 3 or 4 years, we've seen a tremendous growth in trade with Vietnam. Vietnam is kind of what received some, what I would say, tailwinds from the fallout with China. A lot of factories have shifted production and manufacturing to Vietnam. As a result, China is no longer the cheapest place to make things anymore anyway.
Right.
And so Vietnam has really grown to be, a top 5 trading partner for us. And so we go to Vietnam. Normally, we take the trip out to meet our customers in Asia, and usually it's just Singapore, Korea, and Taiwan. But we've actually added Vietnam to that trip, and I've been to Vietnam the last 2 or 3 years to meet with the shippers, and the logistics professionals to make sure they're keeping our gateway, meeting people like Ashley Furniture and a lot of these companies that have really, Brooks Shoes, which is headquartered here, starting to shift their supply chain over to Vietnam. I'm also hearing that Thailand, Indonesia are also very much on the rise as far as taking some of that slack from China, and potentially India as well. And as you all know, there's a new Indian consulate here in Seattle, which has been very helpful in trying to foster those relations. And so I'm hoping to go to India for the first time next year.
Very good. But I saw that the tariff with Vietnam, if I'm, have the latest information, because it does change, but it doubled.
Yeah. No, I mean, look, I think, for all the noise, they are thinking about things in this administration. It's not total chaos in the sense that they know what happened in the first time they did tariffs on China.
Right.
They're like, oh, our trade deficit with Vietnam is at a record high because of what we did with China. And so they did slap tariffs on Vietnam. They did announce a trade framework a couple of months ago that knocks down the tariff rate. It's still high, though. I think it's between 20 and 30%. But then they added a higher tariff rate for any goods that come from Vietnam that first came from China.
Yeah.
So that tells you they're thinking about it. They're
Right.
aware of it. They know it, right? So if anything came from China, went to Vietnam, and then came to the United States, then it gets even higher tariff rate than what would have come, just from Vietnam. And so it's been tough. I think one of the things that is, I guess, I don't know if it's a redeeming factor, but essentially because you've put tariffs on all the countries, you've kind of raised the floor, right? So it's really a matter of like which country of these has the lower tariff, right? And whether or not it makes sense to invest in infrastructure to start manufacturing in those countries. But generally speaking, Vietnam still has a lower tariff than China, and so we expect Vietnam to continue to grow.
Well, and of course, we're competing. We're competing with Canadian
Prince
ports,
Rupert,
right?
Vancouver.
We've lost a lot of
Oakland.
market share over the years.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. It's
And
been really rough.
I think people outside of the industry are starting to notice too. Like, obviously, we all know that, but I have been at places where people are like, hey, I've heard that, like, the Prince Rupert port up in Canada is becoming really popular. I'm like, yeah, that, there's a few reasons for that. It's been going on. But just like people who don't normally think about these kinds of things, even starting to notice, which is telling you something. And that's interesting.
It's telling us Sam Cho's doing his job. Getting that word out.
I'm trying. And there are policies out there that can help with that we're really trying to get this administration to pay attention to. We have the harbor maintenance tax here, which is very, very difficult for us to navigate around because it adds so much of the cost to bringing a container through our gateway as opposed to Vancouver
Can you explain that for
Yeah.
everyone?
Yeah, so the harbor maintenance tax is a federal tax on containers that come into our ports, and essentially that pool of money goes to the federal government. It's supposed to be used for harbor maintenance, and essentially dredging, right, to
Right.
keep our ports deep enough to actually be able to accommodate the large vessels that come into our ports these days. The problem is that, or not, our blessing has become a curse here in the Puget Sound because our ports are naturally deep berth ports. We have 51 feet, very deep. We can already accommodate the 23,000 TEU vessels. And so the problem is we pay into the harbor maintenance tax pool money, but we don't get anything out of it. We don't get the money back because we're already a deep berth port. So we are what policymakers call a donor port.
Right.
So we pay into it, and then our money goes to another port to do their dredging, right? Which is a huge problem for us because obviously it raises the price of bringing a container through our gateway. And so part of how a lot of shippers get around the harbor maintenance tax is to bring those containers to Canada, because then what they do, because there's no harbor maintenance tax in Canada, so they take the containers to Canada, Vancouver or Prince Rupert, and then they rail it across the border to the United States where it's going to the Midwest, for instance, right? What we've been advocating for is to assess a harbor maintenance tax on land port of entries. So whenever the container crosses a land border, it also gets assessed, right? And that could level the playing field for us a little bit, right? And so that's something that we've been advocating for with this administration, thinking that obviously with how this administration feels about the trade relations with Canada, they might be a little more open to that kind of policy. And so we're getting a little into the weeds of, okay, if this is your goal, here's a policy that will actually help, that is actually aligned with what we need here in the Pacific Northwest.
Yeah, the squeezing balloon.
Exactly.
So yeah, trying to push one of those back in to your hand.
Exactly. That's exactly right. Yeah.
Well, I've noticed this administration seems a little bit antagonistic towards blue states. And
a little?
and I wonder if your voice is being heard, just being from a deep blue state here in Washington and in particular Seattle. So I know you're involved with the USTR.
Yes.
And that's massively important.
Yeah.
Like, can you describe that relationship and sort of?
Yeah. It's mostly a one-way relationship where I go on these calls. I think they're like bi-weekly briefings from USTR on the latest, right? And it's just it's like a conference call. It's really hard to get a question in or to provide feedback, which was the purpose of this advisory. It's called the Intergovernmental Advisory Council on Trade Policy. I was actually appointed to this council during the Biden administration. Surprisingly, they haven't fired me from that position yet, because I actually got terminated from another position I was serving in at the Department of Transportation recently.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so I was on this other thing on anti-human trafficking.
Yeah, I saw that.
Yeah, and I got this letter from DOT saying you've been terminated.
Oh.
I haven't received that from a USTR, mainly probably because we don't really get much of a voice on that committee anyway.
Okay.
But it's a good point. Obviously coming from a blue state, we don't get as much gravitas or weight in this administration. But this HMT issue is not just a Port of Seattle, Port of Tacoma, or Northwest Seaports Alliance issue, right? It's an issue for Long Beach, for LA. It's an issue for many ports that are quote unquote donor ports. And so this really is something that is part of a broader coalition to change the policy. And we also, to their credit, we have a tremendous congressional delegation that understands the issue, who supports us wholeheartedly in terms of promoting trade and making sure that, our longshoremen have jobs and whatnot. And so we've definitely pulled those levers as well. Both Cantwell and Murray have been very supportive of the alliance and on our activities. And so whether it's a legislative fix or if it's a executive order, which this guy really seems to love, I don't think we're very partial on the mechanism. We just think that the policy needs to be in place.
Yeah. So the alliance is marking 10 years, 10-year anniversary, and I know that. And I don't know everything about the Northwest Seaport Alliance, but it's the charter goes for another 10 years, the way I understand it. So what do you see with the future of the Northwest Seaport Alliance?
Well, I think, the industry is shifting a lot. It's changing. Vessels are getting bigger. There's a lot of needs in terms of infrastructure upgrades. Obviously, on-dock rail is extremely important. Obviously I come to the commission post the formation of the alliance, so I wasn't here in the genesis when it was founded and formed. But generally, I feel like the alliance continues to be one of our greatest strengths in terms of pooling our resources and our brain power to try and make a gateway that is essentially working as one, right? The era of Tacoma and Seattle competing with each other, taking food off each other's plates when we should be competing to take the food off of Vancouver or Prince Rupert or Oka's plate, continues to be the case. In fact, I would argue that it's even more important today than it has ever been because our volumes are not doing so great in this moment, right? And so it continues to be crucially important. I think governing with a body of 10 is always more challenging. The more people you have in the kitchen, the more cooks you have in the kitchen, the more difficult it becomes. But we have great cordiality and in relationship with our colleagues in Tacoma. I think generally our goals are aligned in terms of trying to grow the gateway. I think in the last couple of years we made some huge investments in the North Harbor. I'm trying to get away from the Seattle and Tacoma nomenclature and refer them to North and South Harbor because we are one, right? Terminal 5 opened, not long ago, which is, our new state-of-the-art terminal. And now the pendulum is essentially swinging the other direction. We're going to start investing in Tacoma, Husky Terminal, and, EB1 and whatnot, right? And so there's a lot of activity there. And the fact that we share the cost 50-50 is obviously a huge help to Tacoma, but also, directly benefits us as well because it's a 50-50 rev share model. So whatever benefits Tacoma, we benefit just as proportionally as they do when we invest in the North Harbor and they receive half of that from there. And so, so that I think that model still continues to be crucial to the growth of the region. That's not to say that there aren't any kinks or things that they didn't think of 10 years ago that we still need to work through. Sure. Like how do we expand the footprint of the port? Who handles that, right? Is it the alliance or the home ports? If we want to go buy a property and put it into the alliance, stuff like that needs to be worked out because we're in a phase where we realize we need to continue to grow. But we'll get through it. Yeah.
Are there any plans in the works in that growing?
Oh man,
that we should know about.
Yeah, I mean, I without giving it away, because obviously I don't want to.
You heard it here first.
Yeah, I don't want to start some sort of bidding war or speaking against our interest. But the ports are always looking to add to its footprint. For us, it's about efficiency and customer service. So if there is plot of land out there that's going to provide truck queuing or whatever, more warehousing or more yard space, or we can expand the yard, the rail yard or whatever. We're always looking, and I think there are a few opportunities out there, including some federally owned properties that could be liquidated under this administration, that we are very, very aggressively trying to pursue. So I'll leave it at that.
Yeah, no, that's. I'm satisfied with that. Just hearing that is more than I realized. So that's great. It's good to hear. So speaking of that, I saw a $600 million investment from the Port of Seattle, and then for seaports, and $5 billion for airports. Yeah. So I know your time is split between the seaport and the airport, which must be challenging. That must be really difficult. And then so sort of the question in that is how do those decisions get made? Those kinds of strategic long-term investments.
Yeah, well, we really, again, going back to the skate to where the puck is going analogy, we're looking at where we forecast the greatest growth to be, right? I think especially in the maritime world, it's kind of like a chicken or egg type of dilemma where if you build it, will they come, right? And, there was a lot of doubt even about Terminal 5, which was well, if we invest $500 million in Terminal 5, are we even going to get enough volume to fill that terminal? And if I'm really honest with you, Terminal 5 is not full right now. They could probably do double the output right now than they're doing right now, right? But I always remind folks, remember that COVID-19 pandemic? when the pendulum swung the completely other direction, and all those ports had vessels anchored on shore outside the harbor because they didn't have enough terminal space for those containers, right? For us, Terminal 46, being available was a huge, huge help because those farmers could stage the containers at 46 before they get on a vessel. That was one of the biggest issues during the pandemic, is that we had a lot of imports coming in, but our exports were suffering because those vessels were leaving and they weren't keeping to their schedules. They were off schedule. So these farmers couldn't get their containers to the terminal in time to actually make the turn, right? Well, if you stage those containers at 46 and it's there already, and you just get a drayage check to take it over to the terminal when the ship comes in, it helps. So I've always been of the belief that, yes, there are slow times, but there are clearly, up times as well. This industry is cyclical, right? And which is why we're making that, $500 million investment in the port, which is not a small amount of money. I know it seems small relative to the airport, but in that same vein, the growth of the airport has just been astronomical.
Yeah.
Right? And we did a record number of passengers last year. I think we did 53.4 million passengers. That exceeds the 2019 pre-pandemic level.
How many? 54?
Basically 54 million. It was
Oh, my Lord.
53.4.
I did not know that.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I always tell this fact. Our max capacity, our technical max capacity at SeaTac is 30 million. And we did 53.4.
Ooh,
Right. So we
okay.
are way beyond capacity,
Wow.
and all the investments.
You can put that,
There.
Yeah, it's all right.
There we go.
Yeah,
All the investments that we are making today are to really just accommodate the existing growth.
Wow.
It's not.
Yeah.
It's not.
It's already there.
It's already there,
Right.
right? And it's not to add capacity. We're not adding gates right now, right?
I have not heard
including
it framed
terminals.
like that. Like that it's already there. We're
Yeah.
not expanding to expand. We're expanding to accommodate the
Yeah.
traffic that's already there. So it's
Yeah.
totally not the chicken and the egg thing that we were just talking about.
No,
before.
that's the complete
It's
opposite.
already there.
So I've been reading a lot of things about Seattle and this region that have surprised me. Like I read something about Labor Day, it being like the #1 destination in the United States.
Yeah, it's
over
kind of
Labor
wild to
Day.
me. I don't know.
I'm like, what? Okay.
Yeah, what is it about labor? I mean, we're
Yeah.
a strong labor union town, but I don't
swear,
think that's the reason. why
Seattle
people-
is the epitome of 3-day weekend vacation.
Oh,
Like if it's a
that's all
3-day
cool.
weekend holiday,
Yeah.
it is busy. That is my
Yeah.
theory. And when that came out, I was like,
Yeah,
I've been justified in my theory. Like
yeah. I think every record-setting day that we've had at the airport for a single day volume of passengers has been on a 3-day weekend.
see,
Really? Well, it makes sense.
It's
yeah.
just like Seattle's just big enough, to
Yeah.
do 3.
Well, so then talk to us about the cruise ship terminal. I mean, that
Yeah.
seems wildly successful in my view.
Yeah, wildly successful. From an economic standpoint, it's amazing, right?
Yeah.
From an environmental standpoint, we have a lot of people who frown upon that.
Yep.
Which I understand and I empathize with and I hear them. But the economic impact of cruise cannot be understated, right? $1 billion in economic activity. Every cruise passenger that comes through our gateway spends on average $1,800 in the local economy, right? You think about the person who flies in through SeaTac, books a hotel before the day of the cruise, and books a couple of nights before or after the cruise because they want to do that touristy stuff in Seattle. Right? And then they spend money here, right? And so that economic multiplier that cruise provides to this region cannot be understated. We had 299 cruise calls this year, which is a record for us again. Next year, we've already booked over 300, so it continues to grow, and that exceeds our pre-pandemic volumes, right? And remember, during the pandemic, there was no cruise.
Yeah. Looking at that.
Yeah,
That
it's
chart. Boom.
Huge dip. Yeah.
Yeah.
And so cruises come back with a vengeance, and we're pretty much tapped out in terms of terminal capacity.
Yeah.
Terminal 66, Terminal 66, excuse me, just got shore power. And so on the environmental side, we're investing millions and millions of dollars to make it as sustainable as possible. The reason 46 came out of my mouth is because in order to put cold ironing or shore power at 66, we had to actually drop a cable from Terminal 46 under the water, have it pop out at 66 so that we can plug it into the vessels because there wasn't a substation close enough to 66 to actually do it on the terminal. And so we're literally like pulling out all the stops to try to make this industry as clean as possible. We're a no dump zone, so those cruise vessels are not dumping anything here, right? And we encourage them and we push them to slow steam on the way in, so that they're not disturbing the orcas and the whales and the fish wildlife down there. And so we pull the levers, and our goal as a port is to become the greenest port in North America, and I think we can stand up to scrutiny if we were to put ourselves against any other port, especially on the cruise side. We're the first cruise port in North America, or at least in America, that is shore power capable at 3 terminals at the same time. And that at the same time is an important distinction, because Miami claims to be the first, but if you go to Miami and ask them, can you plug in all 3 at the same time? And they're like, no.
Okay.
Yeah. So I claim that we're the first. Yeah.
Tell us about green quarters. And I know you were, you were very involved in that.
Yes.
And I think there's a lot of, maybe not misunderstanding, but people don't exactly know what that means.
Yeah, we're trying to decarbonize the trade lanes, right? And so this was a Biden era initiative. It was announced at COP, the United Nations Conference of Parties. Essentially, you're trying to decarbonize the entire trade lane between certain trade routes. The federal government at the time said, okay, South Korea and Washington makes sense because we have so much volume from there. There are a lot of other ones. I think Long Beach and LA have one with like Singapore and China and whatnot. I love that they picked Korea because obviously my ethnic background is Korean. My parents immigrated from Korea. And so I was like, oh, yeah, I'll take this mantle, right? Yeah, absolutely. So I was fortunate enough to go to COP27 and announce the formal pre-feasibility study between the Port of Busan or South Korea and our region, which the Maersk McKinney-Moller Center was spearheading for a while. But it's actually underway, and we're pretty far down the line. In fact, this is probably as good as a time as ever to announce that in November, we will be signing a formal memorandum of understanding between the Port of Seattle, the Port of Tacoma, the Northwest Seaport Alliance, the Port of Busan, South Korea, and the Port of Ulsan, South Korea, to formalize the Green Corridor.
Ooh,
right? Yes.
There you go.
Wow.
Yeah, and they are coming here in November to do the MOU signing. It's a big deal. As far as I know, it's the first ever 5-party Green Corridor, agreement.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No, it's
That's
been
massive.
2-3 years in the making.
Yeah.
But essentially, a Green Corridor, the biggest part of the Green Corridor is fuel, right? What you want to do is you want to converge on a fuel type. And as you all know, there's several fuel types out there. The maritime industry, unlike the aviation industry, has not converged on a single fuel source yet. So you have, obviously, LNG, you have ammonia, you have methanol, e-methanol. And so part of what this is trying to do is to get ports on both ends of the loop to communicate on what type of fuel you're going to bunker so that it signals to the industry as well what vessels they need to order.
Right.
And conversely, based on the vessels that go between South Korea and our region, we will be able to forecast what kind of fuel type vessels will be coming to our harbor so that we can try and, again, skate to where the puck is going and build the infrastructure that accommodates those fuels. And so it's pretty, we are impartial in terms of what fuel they choose. They just need to pick one.
Right.
Right.
Dedicate themselves
and dedicate
to
them
it.
and commit to it so that we can provide the infrastructure. Again, chicken or egg, right? We can't build a methanol facility if they decide to go with ammonia and vice versa, right? And so part of it is how do we convene everyone and get everyone to agree and really converge on a fuel type. And that's the beauty of ports, is that it's not just container vessels, right, that use these maritime fuels. Yes, the Green Trade Corridor is on, container ships, but we have another Green Corridor between Seattle and Alaska on cruise ships, right? And cruise ships need to also convert to a sustainable maritime fuel. Well, what if we merge these two Green Corridors eventually, where the container vessels and the cruise ships all agree on the same fuel? that lessens the load for us because then we don't need to build methanol and ammonia bunkering, right? We could just converge on methanol, right? And so that conversion, that basically aggregation of demand that we can actually create as a port by convening everyone will also lower the cost of fuel because you're creating volume and scale for those fuel producers, right? If you have like 4 different fuel types and it's all segmented out, it's really hard to get scale, right? Like, global shipping is only like 3% of greenhouse gas emissions in the world, right? Relative to other transportation sectors, right? And so the maritime trade sector does not have the volume or the the weight to shift the fuel industry into a certain fuel type. But at the very least, we should aggregate that demand so that for any fuel producer, it makes economic sense, right? And the cost of fuel is the biggest problem. Right now, there's a huge shift from methanol to LNG because methanol is just so expensive.
Yeah.
Right? And part of the problem is because we haven't been able to scale the use of methanol yet.
Yeah. We saw C-SPAN came in and has, announced their intent to come and do LNG bunkering here.
Yeah. And look, like LNG is a great transition fuel, but it's not the solution for the future.
Yeah, not the end goal.
Not the end goal, right? Yes, you get that 20% greenhouse gas emissions reduction off the bat, but you can't get beyond that.
Right.
Right. And so that's the long-term goal. And so I'm really bullish on this. And again, once we merge, if we get to a point where we can merge the cruise and the container green corridor, why not go to Long Beach and LA and say, let's merge the green corridors between LA and Long Beach as well with what we're doing up here. And then you have the entire Trans-Pacific loop.
You are, yeah. So what you're describing to me is, and I've heard you say on social media and elsewhere, is the port of the future.
Yes.
That's what I'm taking off of everything that you're saying right now.
I'm glad that's stuck. Everyone uses that line now, and I just want to make it clear that was
where it started.
Yeah, that was my re-election slogan.
I do attribute that to you, though.
Thank you.
Yeah, that was where I first saw it, and I do see a lot of people.
Great.
So I want to give you a shout out on that.
Thank you.
I don't know if it's a question, discussion topic.
Yeah, sure.
I see your vision. I understand it. I think other people are starting to understand it more, and I think the Port of Seattle is dedicated to this. I've seen it where you are making these very long range decisions, thinking ahead, and I understand the chicken and egg thing. That's really tough, but you're very active and very engaged and globally as well. Yeah. What I don't see is the state kind of taking that up as well. We just lost maritime sector lead.
Yes.
I see Governor Bob Ferguson's coming and doing an event with the Northwest Seaport Alliance, which I think is great.
Yeah.
But we don't have any comprehensive state strategy.
Yeah.
Which Stephanie Bowman told me that once. I was like, that's not right. I was like, that can't be right. And it's absolutely right.
She's absolutely correct.
Yeah. And I was like, well, how do we get there? Yeah. Like, because you have a competitive nature, I can tell. Yeah. You just dunked. Yeah, I can tell. You just dunked on Miami, which I love, by the way. So I was like, yes. How do we get the state to take this up? Because you're the Port of Seattle, Northwest Seaport, and then there's everything else. Yeah. I mean, the Washington Maritime is bigger than the Port of Seattle and the Northwest Seaport Alliance.
Absolutely.
So how do we level up?
Yeah, well, look, I think now is the time.
Yes.
I think now is the time,
too.
Right? We have the Climate Commitment Act dollars out there. I think that with these trade wars, at the end of the day, it should be a statewide effort, as you said. And the pain is real, right? Go talk to the farmers in Eastern Washington.
Yeah.
Right, the pain is real. And the conversation around how do we continue to stimulate trade, economic growth in the region is one that is on the minds of a lot of policymakers right now, especially as we talk about cost of living and housing and all these other things, which are all somewhat interconnected, right? And so I do think that it is on the minds of these policymakers. The problem with our industry is that people don't really understand it, right? Because, I mean, it's just one of those things that is out of sight, out of mind. Yep. They don't care until their Amazon package doesn't show up during a global pandemic, right? And so I always say, during the pandemic, ports were sexy, right? Because like Bloomberg was writing about how there's like 100 ships outside the port of Long Beach, right?
Yeah. It's got your package on it.
I know.
Just wait.
I see my Amazon box. No, but I think I these days I say the port is sexy again because of these trade wars, because of the economic climate, right? And part of why I started to do so much more social media engagement is to really get people to understand it. Like, what does this really mean when Donald Trump puts tariffs on China? Well, how does that affect your pocketbook? How does that affect the cost of living in this area, right? We have advocates who are trying to build housing on the waterfront, on terminals, right? Yeah. And it's like, what does that really mean? I mean, in my view, like I look, I'm very, very sympathetic to the housing crisis, right? I want to build housing, right? But the reality is, the idea of building condos on the waterfront is a very myopic perspective, right? Like, you have 93% of Seattle that is eligible for upzoning. Why do you have to go for like the 7% that's industrial that you'll never get back if you lose it, right?
And that's not going to be the greatest place to live either. No. When we got people not wanting to build duplexes in Upper Queen Anne, exactly. That's like, it makes me lose my mind.
No, and I think part of the challenge with ports is that when it comes to something that is more like that touches constituents more directly. Right. And actually, the greatest juxtaposition of this is actually the airport and the seaport. Right. So let's take the airport, for example. My constituents fly through that airport. So when they have a bad experience, I hear about it.
Right.
We hear about it because they directly experience that. Right. But who watches a container come off a vessel? Who, right? So like it's like how much exposure to what we do reaches the constituents. And at the airport, it's very clear when traffic is bad or if your baggage doesn't make it within the 20 minutes that Alaska Airlines guarantees, right? That's very real, and they feel it, and they're not shy about it, right? Yeah. But when their FedEx package gets delayed or something happens, it's not something that is directly associated with maybe what we do, right? And so it's not something. I mean, FedEx might get or the shipper might get the feedback, but we don't as a port, right? They don't equate Port of Seattle to that package or that great salmon you just had, right? Yeah. The commercial fishing, all that stuff, right? So that is the disconnect there. There's another layer in between what our constituents feel and what we do at the Port of Seattle, and trying to articulate that, illustrate that, and show that through the platforms we have today, I think is so important. And I think a lot of people are starting to understand, oh, I didn't know that, or, oh, wow, that's super insightful, And so I think the reason that's important, because it's ultimately the politicians and policymakers listen to the constituents. That they hear their voters and say, if the voters say we want to focus on a statewide economic strategy or maritime strategy, right? They will listen, right? Change starts from the bottom up, right? And so I think the more buy-in we have from the broader population, the more understanding we have of how all this works, the more these policymakers will make it a priority.
I think your social media game is really tight. Like, I've watched it and I've been inspired by it.
Oh, thank you.
Where else are you active? Because I really only ever looking on LinkedIn, but you got to be other places.
Oh no, yeah. So LinkedIn, I'm very selective with what I put up because that's more of like a formal businessy type environment. Right. But I have far more videos on my Instagram and unfortunately now TikTok.
Yeah.
I started putting my videos up on Instagram. I put a dozen or so, and then people kept saying, "Hey, dude, these would go viral on TikTok. You should start putting these on TikTok." I've had like a solid couple videos that have gotten over 100,000 videos. Okay. But I still get more views on Instagram.
Really?
Yeah. Okay. Like I had a video I posted a couple months ago that now has 1.2 million.
Whoa.
Okay.
Views.
What was it? Which one was it?
It was about federal grants and us suing Trump, which is a very, very sensitive.
I just I saw that one.
So that one got 1.2 million.
Okay.
A couple of others have gotten over 500,000.
Yeah, breaking through with people's attention, which is difficult to do. We don't do it well in this industry. Some people, very select people, you're one of them, I think understand it. Yeah. They understand what people are looking for.
Yeah.
And as an industry,
It's an art. It's an art, and
It's
there
an
are
art.
certain things that you have to have a hook within the first 2 seconds of the video. Otherwise, they'll just keep scrolling, right?
Yeah.
But what does get me excited is that because I know the industry to the extent that I do,
Mm-hmm.
I have so many like ideas in my head for how we can break that barrier. Like, why don't we have why don't we have video like the 60-second reels of showing a superpost Panamax crane on the terminal, how high it really is.
Well,
like, what it does.
we were just out at the Northwest Seaport Alliance.
Yeah.
We got up there, we drove.
Yeah.
Oh, it was
Right?
crazy. But
It's crazy.
And you're like, I've never seen a picture of this.
Yeah, or a
So-
video
Yeah.
of how tall it really looks.
And you get that view going down.
Yeah,
I was like,
I mean, I still haven't done. The pilots do this thing where they bring out commissioners onto a vessel as it's coming in.
Yeah.
I haven't done that yet, but when I do it, I want a whole film crew.
Yeah.
Get footage of me going up the hull of the
Yeah.
vessel, going into the bridge and all that stuff, like, and showing the stacks of containers, how big they are,
Yeah.
right? And so I've started to do this at the airport actually because it's a little more easier to do. Where
Accessible.
like I'll go to the airport and talk about checkpoint one that just opened, or I want to do one on our baggage claim system, like the underbelly of the airport. Like, how does your baggage really get to
Yeah.
the conveyor belt? You can do that with your we should have a video that goes farm to port. All right, cherry,
That's brilliant.
yeah,
Wouldn't that be
cherry to
cool?
planes or apples to containers.
Yeah.
Like literally just show, and it doesn't have to be a long video. Just like splice it and be like, apple container ship China.
Here
or
we
whatever.
are along the inside.
Yeah.
That's I love that idea.
So those kind of like flashy videos that you don't even need to talk a lot in those videos. It's just put a nice little soundtrack behind it and just show it. And you just get people to understand, oh, this is the supply chain. Like, this is how this works.
Yeah, we don't have anything like that.
Yeah.
No.
Yeah.
It's true.
Yeah, this is a big reason we're here today.
Yeah.
Is
No, I
trying
love
to
it.
get to real people telling real stories, and the sound bites are great, and they do get a lot of attention. I do love this kind of longer form, like giving you an opportunity to kind of get really comfortable and just speak for an hour or however long you want to. I think that's also a piece of it. I think we're getting better. It's getting better, but it's an important piece, especially for, and again, we haven't even really talked about workforce development at all. I know you're committed to that as well.
Absolutely.
But
it's a gateway
need
drug. The
this.
social media, the 60-second reel is the gateway drug to this.
Yeah.
So it's like, oh, I want to learn more about containers or maritime.
Yeah, that's right.
And then like you're like, oh, like you see it on all these influencers, like check out my podcast, or go buy this on my website. But the social media is that spark that gets people interested, and then obviously you need to convert that into okay, I want to listen to this entire podcast.
Yeah,
Well-
and this industry, wasn't on board for the first few years, and now I think there are a lot of people coming in that are kind of like, "Ooh, we kind of missed this window. Let's try and get back in." And there's a lot we need to make up for in terms of that. And I think that's part of our workforce development problem.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That was going to be my next point to your point
Yeah.
about workforce development. Like the kids don't know about this stuff. And to the extent, whoa, you get to work on this 23,000 TEU vessel and travel the world.
it's sick.
But,
I mean,
yeah,
it's
amazing.
great. It's an adventure.
Yeah.
It's an adventure waiting to be had, and
Absolutely.
it's right there. It blows my mind. It's the thing that got me into this industry was just not wanting to be bored.
Yeah.
And I think that's never going to go away for people looking for something. Just like you can get on this ship and go anywhere in the world and gain this incredible skill that I think people are craving. It's this really fantastic fusion of the future, technology with completely analog. There are things about it that are going to be 5,000 years old. That you're never really going to essentially change. In its baseline essence, it's not going to ever change, and it's available now.
The trade is like the longest, like existing business.
Oh, it's
like
baseline civilization.
It's like since the start of humanity.
Yep.
Right, and it's only grown.
Yeah.
Right.
Well,
It's only going to grow.
the indigenous people here, they had a robust maritime trade
Absolutely.
12,000 years ago.
Yeah.
And like I said, in its essence, it hasn't changed.
Yeah,
I
it's
mean,
not
getting
going
out there and being, it's the scale, of course, is completely different, but technology changes, but
Yeah.
that experience I think is common to
Absolutely.
people.
Absolutely.
So, man, wow. What do you want to talk about? I know you're like really busy. Like what's the thing that's really kind of captured
what do you never
lately?
get to talk? Like, what do people never talk about that you would
I want to hear
love
about that.
talk about?
It's an interesting question. A bit of a curveball here. I don't know. No, I mean, I feel like I generally get to talk a lot about the port itself. I know. Maybe my origin story. I don't know.
Yes.
I think
we
that
want to
kinda-
get to that.
Yeah.
Love to know how Sam Cho has ended up as port commissioner.
Yeah.
Good question. I grew up in the area. My parents immigrated to Seattle in the 80s, in the late 80s. I always joke that my parents immigrated through the port of Seattle, with the asterisk that they flew here not on a boat, right? So one day my mom came up to me and she goes, "Why do people think we're refugees?" I was like, "What are you talking about?" Like, everyone thinks we came here on a boat. And I said, first of all, there's nothing wrong with that.
You could.
But secondly, I don't know why they think that. But then I kind of it clicked. I was like, oh, it's because I keep telling people my parents immigrated through the port of Seattle, and people think of boats, not planes, right? Yeah. So just for clarification, they flew here to the airport, Mom. So yeah, they came here through the 80s. I grew up here in this region, spent some time in Washington, D.C., about 8 years in Washington, D.C., working on policy, right? So in between, I went to London to get my master's degree. Went back to D.C., so I worked for a member of Congress. I served in the Obama administration. And then obviously when Trump 1 happened, I left D.C. and came back to Seattle. At the time, it was a really tough job market for me because no one wanted to hire an Obama guy, right? Like at the time, we didn't have the White House, we didn't have the Senate or the House. So we had like 2,000 or so Obama hands unemployed, looking for jobs, and there was just not the demand for a bleeding liberal in D.C. at the time. So I decided to come home. And when I was working in Congress and when I was in grad school, international trade policy was my shtick. Like my dissertation at the London School of Economics was on free trade agreements. And I worked on foreign affairs, trade, and defense for the member of Congress. He sat on the Committee on Foreign Affairs. And so I had a really strong grasp of that aspect of policy. And it just so happened in the winter of 2016, there was a very big bird flu pandemic in Asia, very similar to what we experienced last year, just in reverse in the United States. And so because of the bird flu, countries like Korea, Hong Kong, Taiwan, Japan, they started to kill off their chicken flocks to stop the spread of bird flu, which obviously led to a shortage of eggs. And so countries like Korea, they actually reduced their tariffs on eggs from like 22% to 0%, and they started subsidizing freight costs to import eggs. That's how bad the shortage was. The average cost of a carton of egg jumped to like $10 a carton from like $3, right? And so I was just monitoring what was happening, and then when that announcement of the tariff reduction happened, I literally drove to my nearest Costco to look at how much a 36-pack of egg was, and I was like, oh, this could be a nice little arbitrage. And so I started cold calling farms. And I literally just started cold calling random farms across the country. And I kid you not, the first farm to take my call was Wilcox Farms.
Really?
Interesting.
Andy Wilcox picks up the phone. I said, hey, there's this amazing opportunity to export internationally. Would love to work with you to try and export your eggs. And so the Wilcox family gave me a shot. I started to look for buyers on the Korea side and whatnot, and so that's how the business got started. My first shipment of eggs was a total disaster for obvious reasons. Eggs are fragile. They don't fly well. As smart as I think I am, I didn't think of the obvious, right? And so my initial reaction was, oh, no wonder no one is doing this. This is like logistically impossible. Right? But then I got a little creative, and this is where I think the game changed a little bit, was because initially I was thinking of selling eggs to grocery stores, supermarkets for consumers like you and me. What I actually ended up doing is going the B2B route, the business-to-business route, where I sold eggs to bakeries, confectionaries, hotels, mayonnaise, ice cream manufacturers. And the difference is that they make goods with the eggs, right? The egg is not the end product, right? They crack the eggs to make bread, ice cream, mayonnaise, whatever. And so what I did is I cracked the eggs in the U.S. and I shipped them in liquid form. So I basically, I shipped the egg whites and the egg yolks. They were actually frozen. Yeah. So I would blast freeze them for 3 days, put them in a reefer container, and ship them to Asia. They'd get there, and these guys would just be able to rip open these 30-pound liners and throw them in with whatever batch of food they're making. That ended up being a tremendous opportunity because there's higher volume because it's food manufacturing. But also because, I don't know if you guys grew up on a farm or anything, but chickens don't lay eggs that are all the same size.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And they're not all pretty.
They're not all pretty. They're not all clean. They're not all the same size, right? And the FDA and the USDA regulate the size of the eggs that can go to the market. That's why when you open a carton, they're all the same size.
Yeah.
But chicken eggs are not all the same size.
Right.
And so these farms actually have to have a machine that sort the size of these eggs based on their size category. Mm-hmm. And so you end up with a bunch of reject eggs that can't go to market. But as an exporter of liquid eggs, why do I care? I don't.
Yeah.
So I would actually buy these reject eggs at a below market spot price, crack them, package them, freeze them, and make them a value add product and sell them at a premium. Yeah. And so this ended up being like a total gem of a business for like 2.5 years. And that's how I cut my teeth in the actual logistics and the business side.
To understand
the actual operations, like what is a freight forward as opposed to a terminal operator as opposed to, and so I did that, between 2017 through 2020 when I got elected at the port. And so when my predecessor, Courtney Gregoire, announced that she was going to step down from the port and not run for another term, naturally, I think folks thought, well, you've got the experience in D.C., you've got the on-the-ground experience of running the business. You're like cookie cutter for the port, man. Yeah. You should really think about running. And like, I honestly was so done with politics at that time because of Trump. Like, I was like, I'm done with this. I'm going to go make money.
Yeah.
But, I saw the slate of candidates who were going for that slot, and I knew how important this gateway was, and I just couldn't just sit back and watch it, and so I threw my hat in the ring, and the voters, agreed that I was the best qualified candidate.
There you go.
And so
the egg man.
My friends call me the egg king. I don't know. I'm definitely not the egg king anymore, but it's been a crazy ride.
Who knew?
I saw that in your background.
Yeah.
When I put you through ChatGPT.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah.
Oh God, I've never done that. I should do that.
No, dude, go ahead. Yeah, it's pretty cool.
Yeah. That's amazing.
I saw that in your background, but of course I didn't know this story.
Yeah.
So that's God, I love that.
Yeah.
That is such a great hustle.
Yeah.
And it sounds
you
awesome.
would think it was all like planned, like the progression of my career. That's all like there was like some mastermind who was like, oh yeah, he's going to do this on trade, and then he's going to start the business, and he's going to run for port, right? But I think, Steve Jobs said it best. You can only connect the dots in hindsight. Mm-hmm. And if you had asked me like 10 years ago that, at 29, you're going to run for the port and become a commissioner and do all these things, I'd be like, what are you talking about, dude? Like, the port wasn't even on my radar then. Right?
You're like, port of what?
Yeah.
No.
Like, what are you talking about?
What's
all
that?
I know is my Amazon package not here.
Yeah, exactly. So, I mean, it's been a crazy ride. I love it, and it's perfect.
Well, and you're also, I read a tea company.
Oh, yeah. So, my mom and I started a little tea shop in Capitol Hill. It's called Social Tea.
Social Tea.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's been
Tell us
a
about
little
that.
passion project of mine, something I've been wanting to do. I lost my dad to a heart attack a couple years ago. And so when he passed, I really felt like, I would love to do something with my mom to keep her active and healthy. And so I had this idea and proposal to do this. Social tea is short for social impact tea. And so we try to, we obviously sell bubble tea, milk teas, but we donate proceeds to, or a portion of our profit to local community-based organizations as well. And so, it's a little passion project that on many days I regret doing because it's not easy to run a brick and mortar.
Can you be
shop.
caught serving boba tea
in Capitol Hill?
Yeah.
Is that ever happened?
Yes.
Are you ever behind the counter?
Oh,
Yeah.
Very consistently on Saturdays.
Okay.
All
Yeah,
right.
so
All right. So if
yeah.
you ever, constituents need
Yeah.
to find you.
Oh my god! Not to like sound arrogant, but there are folks who have come in and recognized me.
Yeah.
In
And they're like,
fact,
wait.
yeah. In fact, I once had a port employee come in.
Like, commissioner?
I was like, are you Commissioner Cho? I'm like, yeah. So I'm
Like,
never.
you look a lot like.
Yeah, I'm never sure if I should be embarrassed or like
No,
yeah,
no.
Well, I have been one. We had the opportunity to interview a couple of our state representatives, and I
Yeah.
always wonder because they're so active,
Yeah.
and so engaged. I'm like, how in the hell is this like a part-time job for you? How do you do that?
man.
And like,
Yeah.
you gotta make money. You have there's like practical things you have to
Yeah.
live here, which is not
Yeah.
Not cheap.
always easy.
Yeah.
Not cheap, certainly. So I'm always curious, like, how do they balance that?
It's tough and it takes a lot of sacrifice and a lot of headspace. But I do think that, it's a double-edged sword in the sense that the fact that folks are willing to go the extra mile to serve in these capacities tells
Yeah.
me that they're super
Yeah.
committed.
Oh, there's no other way.
There's no
Yeah.
way you could do this unless you really cared. Because you're
Right.
not doing it for the money, or
Right.
sure.
I saw the
Yeah.
budget.
Yeah.
I'm that guy. I read
Yeah,
the budgets.
totally.
Yeah, you're not doing it for the money.
On the other end of the spectrum, it does obviously create a huge barrier for folks who might want to serve but can't do it financially.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And so it is kind of like a catch-22 in that sense. Look, I love this job so much. I tell everyone, dude, if I could do this full time and not have to do anything else, I'd totally do it. And if you ask my special advisor, Erica, who's sitting behind the camera, my schedule is insane. And, the level of, meeting requests and travel that I have, I already kind of work somewhat full time in this job. And
So I have an unpopular opinion. It might be popular with you, maybe. I don't know. I'm just gonna
Yeah,
send
no,
it out
spitball.
there. So I think, and it's in particular, and I think the federal level members of Congress, senators, they should get paid. People complain about how their salaries are getting paid while there's a shutdown. They have these benefits and all of that. I think that they should get paid a lot more, like a lot more. And I think of it in so I have a background in law enforcement.
Oh, okay.
And I worked with a lot of different law enforcement agencies, and it's sort of similar. So if people are making laws, engaged civilly like that, in this type of service, like a cop, they should get paid really, really well.
Yeah.
Because at that point, they're fully dedicated. They're absolutely incorruptible.
Yeah.
There is no ulterior motive. But concurrently with that, we should get all of this kind of special interest and law. We should have much more of
a firewall.
from corporatizing our
Totally.
government.
Totally.
So I do honestly, and I'm not just saying it because of this conversation, but you should get paid a lot more.
Thank you.
Like a lot more. And people who do this kind of job, they should be able to focus on it solely.
Yeah.
That's just.
And I think the other argument there is that don't you want the smartest and the best working in government?
Well,
Absolutely.
right. It's
You
like,
could be
why don't
doing
we
something
pay our
else.
teachers more? Don't you want the
Exactly.
absolute
Or the firefighters,
best?
Exactly.
Yeah.
Like,
These are the people that, yeah.
the amount of brain drain and or lack of competitiveness that the public sector has compared to a Wall Street or even Silicon Valley or the tech industry is part of the reason why. Look, at the end of the day, public servants are dedicated to the cause and they're doing God's work in the sense that they're working hard for low pay, but are we really recruiting the best of the best? And you talk about government inefficiency and why the government isn't effective. Well, maybe we should try and recruit the best so that we can, like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan isn't going for mid-tier professionals. They go for the best of the best. There's
Right.
the reason they're the best, right?
Right.
And so I think that is a mentality shift that we need across the country, but also within the public sector to say, hey, we really do, we're servicing constituents using taxpayer dollars. We should be recruiting the best, and we should bring, the ones who provide the best service and the best product for our constituents, right? So I'm totally with you.
I think that is, if you were to put that out on Reddit, that might get downvoted to say that, these publics, as members of Congress should get paid significantly more.
Yeah.
But, I'm not sure that would be very popular
and
on
I
the
think
ballot.
the challenge is that like members of Congress have to vote for themselves to get raises. It's not a really great look.
No, it's not.
Right. Same
Not
with
a
our
good
state
look.
legislators or whatever. I think we have like a salary commission here in the state.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, there's like a separate commission at the state that sets the salaries for the legislators and the governor and the cabinet, which is probably a better way to do it than like the members of Congress voting to give themselves a raise.
Yeah.
Right? So I think it's a system problem too. It's like, why do we have this process?
Oh, and okay, so talking about your origin story and what's going on with you, tell us about the fellowship that you're involved with.
Wow. Thank you for asking me about that. So I did the Marshall Memorial Fund fellowship. It's a basically, well, it's like a 6-month program with some programming, but it concludes with a 3-week trip. So the purpose of the General Marshall Fund's like Marshall Memorial Fellowship is to actually pick 20 or so leaders from the United States, mid-career leaders from the United States, pick 20 from Europe and do like this transatlantic exchange, right? And so the Europeans come to the United States and they travel to 3 or 4 cities in the United States. In fact, there was a cohort that came to Seattle a couple weeks ago. And then the Americans go to Europe and we travel across Europe. I was in 4 different countries, right? And you meet with prime ministers, deputy ministers, members of parliament, business executives to really understand and learn about those respective cities and countries. And so I was in Moldova, Albania, Denmark, and Greece. And I loved it because it was like a taste of Eastern Europe, a taste of Western Europe, the Balkans. Like it was perfect in the sense that it really captured what's happening in Europe, but also, and more importantly, kind of like where U.S.-European relations are right now, how strained they are, how much of effect Russia is really having on Europe.
Yeah.
Like we talk about Russia a lot here in the United States, but those guys feel it directly.
Right.
They're in direct threat of what Russia and Putin is doing.
Right.
And Moldova right now is going through the thick of it because they're former Soviet Union. Putin wants to take Moldova again. They just had parliamentary elections that were extremely contentious, and there was a lot of Russian interference. It's very similar to what we saw here in the United States, but they went even further in Moldova, where they were literally like bribing people to vote against the pro-EU coalition, right? And so to see it in person was one of the biggest eye-opening things for me because it's different when you read about it in the news and then you go and talk to people who are being directly affected. Donald Trump cut USAID. Moldova was getting a lot of USAID. And I think for me, it really made real that like a lot of what USAID did was in the interest of U.S. foreign policy. I'll just give you an example. We allocated under Biden over $120 million on energy projects in Moldova. And the reason we did that is because Moldova was basically completely reliant on Russian oil. And so the idea was it is in our interest as the United States and Moldova's interest to wane off the dependence on Russia on oil. So we are going to invest in your energy infrastructure, in your grid, so they can wane off of Russian oil, right? And so that was through the USAID programs, and obviously USAID doesn't exist anymore, right? They also were investing in free press in Moldova, giving independent journalists some capital to continue their work because there was so much Russian interference in the media and in social media and in these networks that they were like, okay, we need to make sure the truth is getting out so that people don't become brainwashed to all this Russian propaganda. And so all these little efforts that we were funding over there was actually really in the interest of our national security in the long run.
Right.
And so, there's real long-term effects to our retreat. And, obviously Trump kind of doubting NATO is also a huge issue. And so
I worry that it's not coming back, that it's not easily reversible. It's not that type of soft power. I don't think is something that you can just turn. You can certainly turn it off. Stop paying. I think it's more difficult to turn back on.
Yeah, it's harder to turn back on because you have to play the long game.
Yeah.
Right. it's not like a flash in the pan. It takes time to change people's minds and their hearts and their sentiments about certain things.
Right.
And so it is the long game, right? And whenever we pull back something abruptly, by the way, it wasn't like there was like a waning off or a transition. It was just like, okay, tomorrow we're done, right? That only gives more ammunition to the opposition to say, hey, see, they don't care about you.
Yeah, they will abandon you.
Yeah, they'll abandon you, on a dime, you know. And so that is been the biggest concern coming out of that.
Totally makes sense.
It's very eye-opening. It was an amazing trip. One of those.
Gosh, I bet. That is so valuable, that perspective. I'm glad you got the opportunity to do that. This is like one of the things about travel. I have two teenage girls, and I tell them a lot. You need to travel. It's part of a responsibility you have. Just living in this world, you need to understand other cultures. And get outside.
Yeah, I think it's about perspective and empathy.
Yeah,
I have far more empathy for the Moldovans and the Albanians and what they've been through. When in Albania is a crazy country. Not crazy in the sense that they're crazy, but like their history is a little crazy because the first part of the 20th century they started out as fascist, and then the mid part of the century they were communist, and then they became democratic like in the 90s. Right, so they're a very, very new democracy, and so they've been through it, all of it. And I literally like got a tour of this communist bunker that's like 100 meters underground, and like I literally got chills. I was like, "This is not a world I want to live. Like this is not what I want for myself or the future." Right, and I never would have felt that looking at a picture or reading about it or watching a video. Like I literally like it was a struggle for me to walk through that. It looked like what I imagine like the Holocaust or something like that would have felt like, right?
Yeah.
And that's real. And, having that experience, that empathy, the feelings, really changes the way you see things and how, like as policymakers, there's no way that can't influence you.
Yeah.
It is in a time when everything is so heavy in policy. It's just so nice to speak to someone like you.
Yeah, Commissioner Cho, I'm so glad you're here.
Thank you for having me.
And it's your most precious thing is your time and your attention, and you've given us quite a bit today. So I'm extremely appreciative.
It was well worth it. Thank you again, and let's do it again.
Yeah. Oh, we'd love to have you anytime. So that'd be fantastic. So keep up the social media game.
Thank you.
Yeah. We normally ask at this point, like, where can people find you? But I think we've pretty much covered that.
Yeah. My Instagram is Sam H. Cho. My TikTok is Sam Cho, and
great.
That's
there we go.
Yeah.
Well, it was really amazing to have you. And we greatly appreciate it. And we absolutely will follow up on another one.
Let's do it.
So I think with that, we're going to close out this special episode of the Maritime Morning Brief, and we will see you all again bright and early tomorrow morning.